All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 105 of the On Air Advocate. Where at the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate. And I am super excited that you are either joining us late here this evening or whether you are catching this on the replay. Now, if you think that this information could be relevant for anyone in your circle, anyone in your network, please hit the share button and share the love with others. Well, if all of you have been sticking with me since New Year's Eve when we kicked off our reset series, time to refresh and re-energize, get ourselves going for ourselves as well as our loved ones that we take care of, then you know that we are in the mix. We've gone through food and strategies and mindset and all of that. And now I have back with me tonight one of my favorite people.
Oh, yay. Hi, Tammy.
Robin Richards. She is a teacher, a speaker, a writer, a founder, and coach of MamasMomentum. Welcome back.
Well, thanks. I'm so glad to be back. And it's just really great to kick off the new year talking about something that's so much part of my personal journey and also really a synergy of everything that you've been talking about in your series. We're going to be talking about yoga, but what's really interesting is that no part of any of the eclectic pieces that are me do I actually have an official yoga instructor title. But that is what makes it unique when I speak about yoga, because it's an accessible tool that you don't have to be wearing I don't know if you have core power yoga in your neighborhood or in your neck of the woods, but I'm from Minneapolis and we have those. And sometimes you stereotype what a person needs to look like or what shape you need to be in or how twisty and what your coordinated Lululemon outfits and all this. And we're going to keep it real. It's accessible to all and the benefits are amazing. And the synergy between what you've already been talking about with mindset and really then being able to make the best choices. Yoga helps give you access to all of that. So I'm really excited to be here, Tammy.
I am too. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit because some people probably never caught those first episodes. We're on 105 right now. And I think, Robin, you were back in the 20s.
Yeah.
Then to kind of talk a little bit about your personal journey with health and wellness itself. I know that you kind of coordinate a Weight Watchers group as well. So looking at health and wellness aspect, but kind of from your own personal traumatic incidences that have happened in your life, why you kind of sought out these things, the mindset, the yoga, health and wellness. And so if you can give everybody kind of a little bit of a background to that before we really dive into I wanted to try to do some yoga in here. I don't know.
Well, as I mentioned to you before we got live, today we're going to actually be doing some seated little techniques when we get into the actual practice. But, thank you for giving me the time and the space to share my personal journey. The really cool thing, Tammy, is I was on, episode in the 20s and now here I am at 105 and this is all part of the journey. And it's part of me being able to really write the story of my life. And that's what we're all doing as human beings. And what a more exciting time than a new year, right? But my story does begin with a little bit of a hiccup, a challenge. And that was a traumatic loss of my mother, which I witnessed and was by the hands of another human being back in 1987. And so I was 1 month into kindergarten, but part of my amazing gift the gift of any trauma is that you can transform energy because energy is neither created nor destroyed. That is a law, that is science, that's fact. And so that is something that I just always sought out as a survivor and as a person who was surrounded by a community of people who believed in me, who loved me, and who supported me. And so part of this story, which is so cool, is that I lost my mom when I was 5, but I did get gifted with some of the best mamas ever. And a mama I define as an empathic caretaker. And that is not exclusive to gender. It's not exclusive to birthright. 2 of my most loved mamas, if you will, were my dad, who raised me, and then his, at the time, girlfriend, who became his wife, and my stepmom, who never birthed her own children, but really took me on. And now why she's so important to all of this and what we're talking about with yoga is that she introduced me to yoga. And it was from a PBS special that Raquel Welch did back in the 80s that my mom videotaped on a VHS, that it was actually a 90-minute, just her in this studio, Raquel Welch, doing the Bikram sequence of postures. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I remember being 8 years old and watching her do the video. And then I even remember being 10 and 11 and having friends over and trying to do some of the different poses because they just look so cool. And it was just like something I wanted to do. So as I've learned in my adulthood, not many people necessarily in the 80s were exposed in that same way. So I've had, when I say almost 30 years of experience with it, it's just been a part of what I've been exposed to in my life. So again, transforming energy, has been part of my journey. And so I was an educator. I was a high school math teacher for a decade. And wow, can you focus more on mindset than the anxiety that exists in a math classroom? Honestly, Tammy, I wanted to get into education because I just have always seen the fullest growth potential in people. And it took a great loss and trauma, but I've always seen that, and that activated that in me. And I didn't choose math. I did love math, but I didn't choose it because of the subject. I chose it again because of the growth potential within people. And that's really what I worked to activate. And that's what I'm continuing to do even with Mama's Momentum now, which is my own business that's all about transforming energy and mindset and really self-development of women, specifically the caretakers, the mamas. But as we're getting into even yoga within my experience now teaching, right? So now I'm 10 years in education. I got my bachelor's, and then I was working on my master's and my specialists. And throughout, there would be different guest speakers and things talking about how you teach the whole child. How do you access the whole child? And a lot of it was dealing with the mind-body connection. And so when I ended up after a decade of teaching high school math, I ended up transitioning into more of an administrative type of position in St. Paul Public Schools in a very urban setting. So we were dealing with students that had a lot of trauma. Now, my urban setting school not only had a lot of socioeconomically disadvantaged students, but we also were a magnet school, a hub for developmentally disabled kids. We had a DCD program, and we had a language academy program. So you and I, before the show, were talking about inclusion and what that looks like and how it actually distributed our resources. It's much more complex. There's no black and white with any of these scenarios. It's much more complex. But something that is a very complex thing that fits all of these, that's very simple, is yoga. Because what yoga did is it connected the whole idea of mind and body, and regardless of your ability and regardless of where you're at, we want to make sure that you are having the best quality of life possible. Because when you are feeling safe and secure and you're feeling productive and you're centered and you're balanced, that's when you're going to learn. So when you're in a math classroom, my job as a teacher isn't just to teach you math, it's to get you into a headspace that you're able to actually integrate the information and that you're not just in a trauma-filled, anxiety-ridden place. And the thing is that trauma, especially now when we're dealing with kids and technology, social media, we don't know what kind of trauma is living in their body or what kind of stress, right? We can call either one of those words, what kind of stress is existing. But if you imagine a ball that was filled with glitter, I used to have one of these in my classroom. So I had a jar, and it was filled with water and then glitter in it. So if it just sits there at rest, the glitter settles at the bottom and then the water is clear. But if you shake up that jar, then all the glitter is all throughout and the water is just sprinkled with that glitter. And that's basically all of our brains, but especially an adolescent's brain, and especially a brain when you're in an anxious and stressful place, is that glitter sparkled all over and you can't get a clear picture to be able to focus on what's going on in front of you, what your task is at hand. So yoga was a way where we were beginning to do some breathing techniques and really simple things from a comfortable seat, right? Because most of the time kids don't want to stand up and do all of that, to get kids to be able to get into their best learning place. And also what ended up being an incredible feature was that it didn't matter what language you spoke. And it didn't matter what your cognitive ability was. This was just doing movements and breathing that everyone was accessing. And so I'm just really, really honored to be able to have that practice that has been sprinkled through my personal life, that I got connected with it, and then in my professional life and education. And most recently, I struggled with infertility, and then I have chosen the path, because I have a miracle baby girl, to focus on raising her and then also healing my own PTSD and recently getting diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So how I've been actually doing that in my adulthood has been through starting my own practice of yoga. And as I mentioned, Bikram, from way back in the 80s, that Raquel Welch video, it was through a high school alumni that another one of my friends was talking about, that was doing this crazy 90-minute hot, sweaty yoga. And she was just like, had been this off the wall person in high school, and she was calm and centered, and now was getting married and about to go live in Dubai and like do all of this stuff. And I'm like, I wonder if I could do that type of yoga. So I was about 205 pounds when I first entered a Bikram yoga studio. So I want to check everybody on this, okay? Because people often stereotype different things of what people look like or their level of flexibility. And you did mention, Tammy, I am a proud WW, which is the formerly known Weight Watchers coach. So I do lead a workshop each week, but I've been a member for 17 years. So I was the big bone girl, like my whole life until honestly, I'm 36, and it was just like 34 years old that I got into, that I ended up losing 85 pounds. So it was accessible to me still. It was all about how my mind was when I was a heavier weight, going into this 90-minute heated yoga practice. Now, what I loved about this practice was that it was the same 26 postures every single time, the same things that the practitioners were saying. And that allowed me to be able to get really comfortable with those postures and the heat of the room and all of these things. So if you can't tell, I'm really into education and learning about new things. And so I did explore more about Bikram, and it's very interesting, because if you ever hear somebody say that they practice Bikram yoga, it's referring to, Bikram is the name of the person who came up with the sequence of postures and the way in which this yoga is practiced. So yoga has multiple postures, and what this man did was he put together them in a sequence that would allow your body to actually detox. And what you do is you start and you end this practice with breath work, because that's how you fuel your body to get centered and balanced, is through your breath. And then at the end, that's how you also expel all the toxins that you've been moving around. And like, as you're spending your body in certain ways, you're, relieving your lymph nodes and your adrenal glands, and you're putting the right type of flow and pressure to literally be calming yourself on a physiological level. So I really enjoyed that, but it was very intense. 90 minutes is a really long period of time. And I was practicing a couple times a week, but I did 7 years ago find a studio that's really close to my home. And they do that same sequence of postures in a heated room, but only once, so for an hour. And I ended up falling in love with this studio. And there's some back history with Bikram yoga and some abuse, right? People, human beings, sometimes even yogis, manipulate trainings and that type of thing. But what I love about my studio is that they're not a formal Bikram studio. Because if you ever want to practice Bikram yoga, it means that you're going to go into a studio that has carpeted floor, that has a certain percentage of humidity. Like, that's what that used to mean when it was Bikram certified. A side note is that because of Bikram's escapades and different things, the whole yoga community still call it Bikram yoga, but it's not the same. He's not involved. Like, it's become like the Bikram community. So just for any listeners who might be like, I thought I heard some scandalous things about that guy, I don't want to check out and support, a Bikram studio. They're not actually directly funding him, and there's been settling for all that. But anyways, I digress. The biggest thing for me is that yoga, what it allows you to do is it really connects you with yourself and your breath, and being able to take control of the thing that we lose the most, which is our mind, and which creates our reality. So with that, I do have just a brief little introduction of yoga that gives a nice snapshot. Because like I said, I'm not a yoga teacher. I'm a teacher and I'm a yogi. So I love talking about yoga and my own journey and introducing different techniques. But I just wanted to give like a brief little overview, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect.
So this is I have several different little books, but I love like half price books in those places, Barnes and Noble, and they have the little cheap bins. And I got this little guy many years ago. I used to keep it in my classroom actually. And it was so fun when students would pick it up, and I'd have an area where they could pick up books just to learn about different strategies and things. And when they'd ask, how is yoga related to math? And I'm like, oh, your mind and your body and triangle pose. And then I would make them get into triangle pose sometimes too. That's actually really, really fun, is to do yoga, especially with geometry teaching. That's for kinesthetic learners. That's a great time. But getting back to this, after their first yoga class, people often report that they've slept better and feel taller. Yoga has helped people lose weight, overcome fears, conquer habits like smoking, and develop better concentration, all of which help their performance in their daily tasks. Others feel improved self-awareness, a deep sense of well-being, developed compassion, enhanced relationships, greater self-acceptance, and a sensation of being at peace. What do you think, Tammy?
That's pretty good. I mean, come on. And I've actually never formally done a yoga class.
Oh.
Friends that have done it, that have come over with my kids, they're like, try this pose,
Yeah.
this. And, my kids are like, what are we doing?
Oh, that's really fun.
And I've done some breathing, but I've never done a full yoga class. So it's something that's on the list that I feel like I want to do.
Yeah, well, maybe we can even after this, it kind of sparks an idea in me, and my heart is just soaring so much towards yoga. One of my coaching clients, one really great thing about Mama's Momentum is when I was doing some coaching, I designed specific tools and strategies to help them with their energy awareness. And so I actually created some sequences of postures. So like I said, I'm not a certified yoga instructor, but I would love to put together something, and maybe we could do like a little 5-minute introduction to yoga, and I can set up so we can actually see more than just the wall behind me, but and our viewers would be able to see, and then our listeners would be able to tune in later. But we can talk more about that after recording. I wanted you to hear this quote from this book. The whole idea of yoga, and sometimes because, especially for someone like you, Tammy, that hasn't gone to a studio before, understanding the philosophy behind it is just such a cool thing to be able to realize that it's not an exercise class. It's not a workout. It's a work in. You're really, you're not, the true practice of yoga is about, the poses are designed to help you connect with your mind, to help you still your mind, so that it's making you concentrate on things other than the things that are outside of you. So you're really concentrating on inside of you. So even like if a balancing posture is symbolic, right, of not just balance on right where we are, but how balanced are you to be able to stand on one foot, to not look at the distractions, to do all of those things. And so that's why when this book says, mind is the master of the senses and the breath is the master of the mind, that is the philosophy of what goes on within yoga, specifically the branch of yoga called hatha yoga. So if you ever hear hatha, that means breath. And so that's where you're coordinating your breath with your movement. So Bikram yoga is the class type, like the sequence and all that, but it would be categorized. It'd be like the city, right, of Milwaukee in the state of Wisconsin. So Bikram is like a type of yoga that could be in the category of hatha, which is breath work. And so in order to control our mind, we control that through our breath. So would you like to learn one of the breathwork activities? Now, the best part, Tammy, is that I'm literally teaching you the first breathing activity for a Bikram class. And every single Bikram class starts with this, including like, anyone that you would see. And you also, at any yoga class, might do this type of breathing. I'm not a yoga teacher. I don't remember what the actual term is. So I'm just going to talk it through like we're real people working towards being yogis. So the first piece is normally you would be standing up and you'd be standing in mountain pose. Now, when I think of a mountain, I think of something standing off in the distance and just being still and part of the landscape. And that's what you need to imagine when you're in mountain pose. So you're standing with your feet hip width apart. A great way to measure that is to take your fists, and if you put them together right down in between your feet, that's about hip width apart for most people. You want your feet parallel to each other, and you can even play around with your balance to make sure that you're just kind of centered. It's fun sometimes too to have awareness of just standing and like focusing on what happens with your balance. Well, once you're in mountain pose, then what you're going to do is you're going to take your hands and you're going to clasp them together, and you're going to place them right underneath your chin.
Following you, right? I'm going to put these papers down.
Okay, I like it. So you're going to clasp your hands.
I'm on this live right now. I hope that you're doing this with me. I hope I'm not alone.
So we're going to at least sit up straight if we're sitting here. I think I can move this too. Well, you're not alone because I'm right here, right?
Right, it's the two of us, but I'm hoping that others are too.
So we clasp them together. So this would be prayer, where you would have your thumbs linked if you were doing some other different types of things. And this would be when you're pointing, but we're just fully like clasped together with your hands underneath your chin. We're going to breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth. But when we breathe in, we're going to want to make it in through our nose, almost like a little bit of a snoring sound. Because what that does is it helps open up your air passages, and it really just helps ground you. And there's some other physiological things in there. And while we're inhaling, we're going to lift our arms up. And then when we exhale, it's going to be through our mouth, and we're going to sound like this. And we're going to tilt our head just gently back and bring our elbows together. And now yoga is about being comfortable. It's not about being stressed and strained. So you always want to be aware and just be really, like, my neck is really tense right now, and I carry a lot of pressure there. So even doing, like, I'm always aware of just where my neck is and how far I'm moving, because we don't ever want pain. We just want it to feel a nice, like, relieving kind of pressure, just like a massage or something would have, right? So we're going to be in through our nose and out through our mouth, and it's for a count of 6. So I'm going to do one for you so that you can see what it looks like. And if you want to go along with me the first time, that's fine. But the second time, I do want you to jump in. So we start out like this, and then we just go. So it's in for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Are you putting your head back the whole time, or not till you get to this point?
Only when you exhale.
I feel like I'm not doing very good. I'm going to need to practice this.
So, yeah, well, and you're not standing. So, I'm going to watch this back. That was great. I didn't see you the whole time, but, that's just wonderful. And the best part is, with all of this, just have a smile. I mean, when I'm in yoga classes, it's not serious. I'm just centered. Sometimes I'm not even aware when I see.
A long time. So like you're.
Oh, a long time.
Class.
Yeah. I mean, I remember.
You remember step aerobics when that was a big thing? Like you'd be going around the world and you were backwards, you were forwards.
Yeah.
Which way to go? Probably the same until you get the routine going.
Well, and that's again why I loved doing Bikram, because it's the same every single class. So like when you do it over and over and over, right? And people would think, well, that gets really monotonous. I'm never the same. Every time I step into that room, I'm different. My body is different. My mind's different. It shows up different. And me being able to do that same thing every single day, it really gives me a chance to be able to analyze where I'm at, because I can see if I'm in alignment, right? Like it's the same room. There's no music going. It's quiet. And you have the instructor's voice telling you these things, the same things every time. So like how I started saying, you inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, exhale, 6, 5, 4. They're doing that, and they're walking around the room, and they're not doing it with you. So this specific type of classes is a little different. But like I said, all these postures are part of just what yoga is. And hatha, again, is focusing on that breath with the movement. So you really are seeing this in a breathing technique. Now, if I was to demonstrate a posture, you would be incorporating, this is not a posture, this is prana. This is working on your breath. Oh, and prana means breath. Hatha is just the branch of yoga where you're really making sure to focus on the prana with
Now,
the
this
breath.
is the beginning. So whenever you're starting a class, this is kind of that beginning breath for you're standing. Is that to relax the whole body?
It's to get centered and to start fueling the body and energizing, because when you're bringing in oxygen into your lungs, that's getting into your blood and you're more awake. So in the morning, this is a great breath work to do, right? You want to energize, you're just, and you can just play around with that a little bit. But I just wanted to give everybody a little sense of what that can look like. And
what about when you're exiting? So, you've gone through the whole class and you've gotten that energy and stuff going. When you're ending the class, is it to release, like you were talking about, like those toxins that you started to release? I mean, what is it, to relax more? What is that ending breath that you end with?
Both. It is the majority of the focus is the toxin release, and you'll see why in just a second. But it is a breath that is focused on expelling the air. So like I said, the sequence of postures when you do yoga in general, when you're stretching, right? Like if you've ever worked out and then you're sore, that's because it's lactic acid buildup and all that. And so you want to have a lot of water so that you have everything flowing in you. And then also stretching really helps relieve that while you're also moving things around in your body. And so that includes in your lungs. Every time we exhale, we're relieving toxins. So we want to really force that out. So even as I'm saying that, I'm like moving forward because we're going to force the air out. And so what's really funny is I was practicing this yoga for a couple of years and I ended up getting, pregnant when I went to one of those birthing classes, and they were like doing the whole, and I'm like, I do that all the time. That's not a problem. So think about that type of thing, because we're just, it's like those typical videos of birthing class type of things. But you want to focus on your exhale breath, and it's just trying to exhale it out. And so in the practice, we do it for 60 times the first time and then 60 the second, but it's faster the second time. But I just wanted to show you a quick 10 breaths and what that looks like.
Posture that you end with.
So you would be sitting on your knees if you can, so like kneeling position. With your bum on your feet. But where we're sitting is really good, because the main thing with this one is that you're not standing. You just want a really, really straight spine. So even if you sit cross-legged or in a chair, this is perfect. You want a straight spine. Your goal eventually is to be able to put your hands on your knees, just so that you have like a really nice straight spine. But for right now, I want you to put your hands on your belly, because what you're going to do is you're going to want to feel your belly really come in, and that's the pushing out of the air. And you only focus on the exhale. I promise that you will inhale. Your body knows how to inhale, but you only focus on the exhale. Because if you focus on the exhale, it'll be like this. If you start focusing on the inhale, it becomes like this. What happens to your body when you do that? That's hyperventilating. We do not want that. No, that's the opposite. And even, Tammy, that really demonstrates the whole concept, though, of how much our breath controls our mind. If anyone doubts me, just start breathing really, really fast. Like I just did that, and you get like a rush and you feel kind of like dizzy,
Right.
Think about when you're stressed, when you're panicked, how is your breath? It's short, it's shallow.
So many that have so much stress and anxiety. And, when they talk about having like an anxiety attack and whatnot, if you've ever had one of those in the midst of all of your stress, your breathing, that's what happens. You know what I'm saying? Your breathing completely changes, which then takes over. You know what I'm saying? So much of your feelings as well, that you have.
Yeah.
So much control that can make us lightheaded, can make us feel sick. And so, but also we have the ability to control our breathing to make ourselves calm. And we learn those strategies of how to do that, to bring ourselves back.
Well, you speaking of that, so I have a 3.5-year-old, and I call her a three-nager because let's be real, like where does some of this stuff come from? But I taught her a breathing technique, and this is again back to my time in the schools. It's called smell your flower and blow out your candle. So you take your fist and you pretend there's a flower, and you smell your flower, and then you put up your finger like it's a candle, and you blow out your candle. So there you go. if that is where you want to start your breath work practice for that first one, right? Just start with smell your flower for 6 seconds and blow out your candle, and then eventually work on getting the head movements and all of that.
But now this one we want to feel here.
Yeah. We're going to feel our tummy. And I love that you brought up too, the whole, panic attack thing. I am a survivor of that, and have definitely healed some significant pieces, but there's a component of grounding yourself where you want to touch base with your reality of where you are, including your senses. And so that's another reason I've really gravitated towards yoga and doing some of this breath work, and showing you these pieces, because you're coordinating movement and breath. And so it actually helps even more, like more than just sitting there breathing. When you're doing more than one thing and doing the movement, it really helps focus your mind. So even right now with us putting our hands on our belly and really focusing on that movement while we're exhaling is going to be a fantastic thing. It does help, specifically, like I said, with the toxins, but it is not an energizer. It is meant to relax. So why don't we go ahead and we'll just, let's do 10 breaths together. And so we'll just count in our heads as we go, but go ahead and take a big, deep inhale to start through your nose, and everything will be exhaled through your mouth. Go ahead and inhale. And begin. Very good.
That one I got it.
And then you can let out the last one, like really long too, if you want to, but.
That is so good. And now when you have worked within the schools and whatnot, and within your circle of those with the different abilities and whatnot, what are some of the easing ways that you have found that you can kind of share these techniques? Would it be with things like the blow out the candle?
Yeah. And then I don't have it easily available, but there are those, I still own one. It's a breathing ball. Do you know what I'm referring to? One of those obelisk moving in and out things. So having that, and you can actually, depending on the level of your kids and their responsibility and all of that, figure that out. But have one of the kids eventually lead it, but it's where that's demonstrating what your lungs are doing. So you pull it out so they see a big ball, and that's when everyone's breathing in together, and then you exhale as it's contracting because your lungs are contracting. So that's, everyone engages in that. That's a really great activity, even if there's something going on, multiple activities and you want to get everybody's attention. On one of our previous interviews, I talked about the bell. I actually have right here on my desk, the chime. Yeah. And so but still, like, incorporating one of these breathing things. When, you're wanting attention, or you're wanting people to just like get calmed down, especially the most critical time for teachers to really focus on getting their students into the right mindset is right after lunch. Technically right after any transition, because transitions are hard for anyone, but imagine being like a hormonal kid and then having a social engagement in the hallway and maybe not understanding that, and then going into a class where you're already failing and then not wanting to participate. Of course you're going to act up. And if whatever else is going on. So another really great way is to just ask them, I think we called it one potato, two potato, but you can make up whatever words you want. But to take your hands in two fists, stack them on top of each other, and put your head down. And we're going to do this. Here, can I bring this down on my desk? Just like this.
Oh, I'd have to go way.
Yep, you got to go way down. But feel your neck when you do that. Like, you immediately relieve some tension on your neck. And so doing that and having them do that, you're not putting your head all the way down on the desk, but it's a really great way to just get like a little inversion, because there's something that happens when you invert your body that gets your body's attention. That's another thing that's really just a great stress reliever and a great way to just kind of get anyone more centered, is having them stand and then just kind of collapse over and just gently fall, and just kind of hang there. It's called ragdoll, where you're folding over. So let's see if I can, in this little tiny space here, where you just, there's the pajama pants. You can fold over like this. This is a yoga pose. You're just
hang. You just hang.
You're just hanging. Yeah, just hanging. So it's really about what's really cool about this practice is that yoga is really old. 6,000 years old. Very old, right? Ancient. There are no materials needed. It's just you, your breath, your body. And it has been effective in exactly what we were saying, in all areas of health and wellness, your mind, your body, and your spirit. But now science is showing why, because our mind, body, and, well, maybe science will show one day to our spirit, but they're all connected, and we know our mind and body are. So when you smile, your body releases dopamine, right? When you release dopamine, you smile more. Like it's just like that. And so yoga and activating your body and your awareness, and actually, like, you know, eventually doing things like twisting and squeezing your glands and moving your body in a way, you're actually helping your mind as well. And then remember, the ultimate goal of yoga, it's not about a workout, it's a work in. It's about finding that center. The poses are a way for you to access a different level of your mind and your focus. So,
and I love that for those of us that are, I call it the hospital hustle when I'm on that in the week, and you know, you're there, is that some of these strategies that we are learning during this reset period and that we have learned are things that we can take along with us. Like you're saying, there's no tools that you need to be able to do it. You could be standing in a doctor's office and hang forward. You fold your belly and start breathing. You could close your eyes and put your head down on a desk or a table there for a few moments. And so learning different techniques that can help kind of de-escalate some of that stress, anxiety, when you're bombarded with it. And I feel as caregivers that so much happens, but as well is our loved ones that are going through different chronic medical conditions, and issues, that they also are so impacted by that. And so little things,
well,
like,
and Tammy, you even had mentioned, for your son and everyone, quality of life, right? Quality of life. So I just want to share this with you. My daughter has been watching me do yoga. She does yoga with me. She knows what downward dog is. It's really, really cute.
A friend came over to show my kids that's where they were like, what is this? Mom?
Yeah. And then so now I'm introducing her to tree pose. So where she's standing on one foot. And I have to tell you, I haven't made her. I've done the tree pose in line at the grocery store and had her do the tree pose with me, because that way she's not, in the middle of like having a meltdown or having whatever else it is. And as you said, the reality is that, especially when we're dealing with people of differing abilities, there's different cognitive levels there. And so the 3.5-year-old, right, she's like getting into it and sees it as play. And there's even like happy child pose is my favorite. You should Google that one, by the way. Oh, it's so much fun. Happy child pose. That is my favorite pose. And that's not part of the Bikram sequence.
Put a picture of this up.
Yeah. But we'll have to, if we end up doing a yoga for the On-Air Advocate series, we'll do the happy child pose for sure. But it really has just been such a pleasure to connect again and get back on here, because this is exactly what my heart sings to as I'm on my personal journey and I'm continuing to be unpacking those layers. It's just such a privilege to be able to serve your community, because you guys are exactly what Mama's Momentum is all about. And that is the empathic caretakers who, I believe this is the revolution, people who are taking care of others and really talking about the things that matter, which is being centered and caring for other people and giving people the best quality of life that we can have possible. So thank you so much, Tammy, for 2019 kicking it off, and for all that you do, from all of the people you've interviewed to all of your listeners and viewers. It's really, really incredible.
Thank you. Well, you know how I feel that, together we can do so much more, and
yes,
sharing our stories and our journeys and our strategies are helping each other so very much. And I'm just excited to have you back on again, going through these strategies. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to try some of these breathing things. I'm going to see if I can get this one down a little bit better.
Don't worry about it. Just do the flower. Just do the rose and the candle. Just start there.
They're going to be like, what are you doing? We're going to try this. We got to be at the hospital at 8:00 tomorrow morning. So maybe me and Marcus will do that while we're in the car. We'll do the candle.
Yeah.
to blow that out. So yes, we definitely have to have a time where we can video and we can do a little yoga session together. I think that would be awesome. So let's talk about that afterwards. But I just thank you so much again for contributing back to our community. I so appreciate it, and spending the last 45 minutes or so with us tonight. So on that note, thank you so much, Robin. You're amazing. Your story is amazing. Your journey is impactful and powerful, to all, and inspiring. And so blessed and honored to have you on the show again. And thank you all for watching tonight on this Tuesday. If you guys want to know any more information about the On Air Advocate or our services, go to www.onairadvocate.com. Or if you'd like to become a part of our private community, head up to the top of this Facebook page, hit the blue button, and you'll be let into our private group. So on that note, everybody have a fabulous rest of your Tuesday evening. Make tomorrow a wonderful Wednesday. And thank you, Robin, again for being on the show.
Thank you, Tammy.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.